On this Friday night, Ontario under fire. The struggles of evacuees as communities burn while the Ford government takes heat for how it's tackled the crisis.
We still have no help. There still hasn't been anything on it. We still live in fear.
More scorching weather on the way, what the rest of the country needs to brace for in the face of a super El Niño. The U.S. president's questionable claims of election interference.
An election system so broken and so vulnerable.
The facts surrounding Donald Trump's controversial speech, what it could mean for the upcoming midterms, and a century of helping those who have served and sacrificed, marking 100 years of the Royal Canadian Legion.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Sarah McDonald.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Nearly 200 wildfires are burning across Ontario, and today, Premier Doug Ford promised no expense will be spared to battle the blazes. Already, 10 communities have been evacuated, and a number of others have been told they could be next. We're getting a closer look at the devastation at Collins First Nation north of Thunder Bay tonight with this new aerial footage. It was taken one day after wildfire tore through the region, forcing residents to flee by boat. The Premier faced tough questions about the province's response to the fires, with some saying it was dangerously inadequate. Vasilios Bellos has our top story tonight.
Heavy rain in some parts of northwestern Ontario easing some fire concerns, but many communities aren't letting their guard down. In Upsala, about 100 kilometers northwest of Thunder Bay, local volunteer firefighters are taking the lead.
But really, when push comes to shove, we pull together.
Though there's concern amongst residents that Ontario hasn't stepped up to support, the lack of attention is surprising to Fire Chief Doug Kazarink after a number of serious fire seasons in a row.
We are underprepared as a province, under-equipped, understaffed. And, crises tends to show your shortcomings.
Where the province is, a question circulating around Upsala, especially considering Riley Isaacs-LaForge says she alerted provincial authorities to the blaze well ahead of time.
We reported the fire June 30th, and then we just saw it grow, and it rolled in a week later.
I just don't know where the help is and why this has even happened.
Sherry Gray's parents own Upsala campgrounds. She says many in the community tried to encourage support from outside, but received none. She says watching the fire continue to grow means difficult decisions.
I am not leaving. This is my home until I immediately have to. I have to worry about my parents.
In response, Premier Doug Ford says help is on the way.
This includes transportation, accommodation, food, and registration services. We're also providing support with air purifiers and air scrubbers to help communities remain in place. My message to all those who've been forced to evacuate is very simple. Our government stands with you and will always have your backs.
And while Upsala hasn't had a mandatory evacuation in place, many residents left the city out of a precaution.
It was really stressful. We just slept in the car.
Kashpreet Kaur fled to Thunder Bay with her husband, but the hotels were already full with other evacuees when she arrived. She says she's since returned to her job at a gas station in Upsala, believing she could help people who need it.
Everyone needs the fuel, yeah. So, there is some gas stations over here, but there are some power outage and all that. We just need to help the community.
Now, despite the smoke clearing in some parts of the province, residents are still not letting their guards down. Many have their cars packed and are ready to leave at a moment's notice, knowing how unpredictable these fires can be. Sarah?
Vasilios Bellos in Upsala, Ontario. Thank you. An out-of-control wildfire has triggered an evacuation order about 100 kilometres east of Halifax. The fire, which started on Wednesday, has grown to nearly 2,000 hectares in size. Officials say that is 5 times the size it was last night. About 40 Halifax firefighters are on site supplying tankers and water. Air crews from Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and Labrador are also helping to tackle the flames. Further west, lightning strikes are being blamed for sparking a bunch of new wildfires in BC. An overnight storm brought badly needed rain, but the BC Wildfire Service says 64% of the province's wildfires were also ignited in the last 24 hours. There are now 55 burning in BC. Hundreds of homes are under evacuation order or alert, including in the Boston Bar area, where 2 fires burning close together have now grown to more than 20,000 hectares in size. Smoke from the wildfires in Ontario is blanketing parts of the United States, stoking new cross-border tensions. Now, President Donald Trump says Canada will be held responsible. The U.S. ambassador to Canada has also now weighed in. Mackenzie Gray reports on the growing political fallout over what's in the air.
Smoke from Canadian wildfires are blanketing some of the biggest cities in America. Detroit, Washington, Chicago, over 100 million Americans shrouded in smoke. And that's caught the attention of Donald Trump. We're holding Canada responsible for the fact they're not properly maintaining their forests, he said in a social media post, labeling it as willful negligence. The threatened punishment, the cost added to the tariffs Canada is currently paying.
The president is saying, yeah, I'm holding Canada accountable. We need to fix this.
30 minutes after that social media post, U.S. Ambassador to Canada Pete Hoekstra sat down with Global News for an exclusive interview and defended the president's threats.
There are potential consequences if we don't get to a resolution as to how we are going to be doing and addressing the issue of forest fires and smoke.
Hoekstra would not say how big the tariffs would be or what mechanism would be used to implement them, but cited the impacts on the U.S. economy and ecology as a rationale.
Businesses are closing because they don't feel it's safe for their workers to go into work. Bees are not pollinating, so in some ways, bees. I mean, I didn't know that, but what do you do to?
But does the bees not pollinating and tariffs? I mean, these don't seem to be proportional responses, though, Ambassador.
Directly affecting the American economy, okay? Closing businesses, affecting the tourism industry.
Trump has previously threatened new tariffs on Canada when he's been upset, like a 10% levy because of the Ontario government's anti-tariff ads, but never actually followed through.
Not taking the President of the United States serious, you do that at your own risk.
New Jersey is set to host the World Cup final Sunday, but that could be postponed, according to Hoekstra, if the wildfire smoke continues to linger.
If the pollution is so bad that it's dangerous to the players or it's dangerous to the fans, the first person to say don't hold the game will be the President of the United States.
Hoekstra added that there is a high level of frustration in the U.S. about the wildfire smoke. One proposal to solve it: have Canadian officials testify both in front of Congress and state legislatures, an idea Hoekstra said was discussed with the Prime Minister's office and Canada's ambassador to the U.S., Sarah. But as senior government sources told me, Canadian officials have no plans to testify at public hearings.
Okay, we'll wait and see. Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa. Thanks, Mac. Trump is also stoking fears of election fraud after his primetime address last night. It involved plenty of false claims without any supporting evidence. Trump insists he is not trying to undermine confidence, but with midterm elections just months away, it appears he could be laying the groundwork to dismiss any results he doesn't like. Jackson Prosco explains.
No country can be great without fair and honest elections.
In a speech so questionable, many TV networks refused to carry it live, President Donald Trump rehashed, debunked, and discredited allegations about election security and foreign interference.
An election system so broken and so vulnerable that no one can possibly defend it.
Trump had promised bombshell revelations. In the end, he made exaggerated claims about non-citizen voters, voting machine manipulation, and claimed China compromised election data that was already publicly available. China quickly denied the allegations. It's clear Trump was targeting a domestic audience.
So what he's doing is setting the country and his party up for what he may say and do in November if his party loses control of one or both houses of Congress.
The White House later released a trove of declassified documents that actually discredited many of the president's claims, like this 2020 intelligence assessment that notes voting machines would be difficult to manipulate on a wide enough scale to compromise election results. The document goes on to say that false manipulation narratives could undermine public confidence.
Trump has undermined public confidence in elections really since before 2016.
For all of Trump's allegations, he did not produce any evidence of widespread voter fraud. Still, the White House is using these claims as a pretext to demand election reforms by the states and Congress.
But we're saying that the machines had to be secured and that your voter registration list needs to be scrubbed.
Those changes, including requiring proof of citizenship to vote, could make it much harder to cast a ballot. Without them, the president seems to be signaling he's prepared to cast doubt on any election result he doesn't like. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
Now, in that speech, Trump also addressed America's war on Iran, saying it's going well, but the crumbling ceasefire eroded further today. There are reports that U.S. airstrikes hit bridges and other civilian sites in Iran, killing at least 7 people. And Iran responded with attacks against American allies in the Gulf. Here's Redmond Shannon on the new phase of deadly fighting.
Iranian state TV shows one of the bridges in the south of the country it claims were hit by US airstrikes. These sites are close to the Strait of Hormuz. State media also claim a train station and airport were hit and that several people were killed. The US military did not confirm it hit civilian use targets like bridges, but it did say its targets included military logistics infrastructures. At Friday prayers in Tehran, a leading cleric said revenge would involve sending those responsible to hell. Iran's actual response included hitting civilian infrastructure of US Gulf allies. Kuwait's government said Iranian strikes hit a desalination plant and a power plant, with more strikes reported Friday night. The UN has said deliberately attacking civilian infrastructure is a war crime.
We continue to call on all parties to exercise maximum restraint, refrain from actions that could further inflame the situation, and engage in urgent efforts to de-escalate.
US troops boarded a tanker in the Gulf of Oman at the entrance to the Strait of Hormuz Thursday to enforce its blockade of Iran's ports, and Iran's Revolutionary Guard reportedly targeted a ship in the strait Friday. Shipping data shows transits through the strait are at a 3-week low since the return to fighting last weekend, and the price of oil has now hit a 1-month high. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
U.S. health officials have confirmed lettuce from Mexico served at Taco Bell is a source of the Cyclospora outbreak. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says the iceberg lettuce was used at locations in Kentucky, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, and West Virginia. It is linked to a single supplier, Taylor Farms. The company says it is removing all affected lettuce from the U.S. market. The intestinal parasite has made thousands of people sick. Cases have been reported in Canada, but they are not connected to the outbreak in the U.S. A new trial over what some say is a miscarriage of justice. Next, why the case of a Quebec man who spent decades in prison is heading back to court. The Ontario Court of Appeal has ruled that Freedom Convoy organizer Pat King is guilty of intimidation and has ordered a new sentencing hearing. Last year, King was handed a 12-month conditional sentence for several other charges related to the truckers' protests that ground Ottawa to a halt in 2022. But at that time, King was acquitted of intimidation. Crown appealed, and today a panel of judges found the trial judge made a mistake in their application of the law. A Quebec man who was recently released after spending more than 3 decades behind bars has cleared a major legal hurdle. The federal justice minister has ordered a new trial for Daniel Jolivet after finding reasonable grounds to believe there may have been a miscarriage of justice. The 69-year-old spent more than 3 decades in prison after being convicted of killing 4 people. Here's Elizabeth Sogalas.
Standing in front of the Montreal courthouse holding the letter he had been waiting to receive for years, Daniel Jolivet says it means the world.
Je vais l'encadrer en plus. Je vais le faire laminer.
I am going to frame it, says Jolivet. I will laminate it.
Nicolas called me on the phone and he said, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "No, why should I?" He said, "Yes, you should."
The federal justice minister signed the letter that states Jolivet will be granted a new trial because there's reason to believe the 1994 conviction may have been the result of a miscarriage of justice.
It's not something that happens very often in Canada. You have to have reasonable grounds to show that the miscarriage of justice probably occurred.
Jolivet was arrested in 1992 and later convicted of killing 2 men and 2 young women in a shooting on Montreal's South Shore. Despite a life sentence and losing appeals all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada, he never stopped maintaining his innocence.
He wanted to have the opportunity, basically, to show that he's innocent. And therefore, it is very important for a person like him to hear that he's not guilty, because he knows he's not guilty.
A new trial could look very different from the first. Several key witnesses have died, and a former police informant who claimed Jolivet confessed has since recanted, raising further questions about the original case.
Disclosure was not done properly. A lot of piece of evidence was not provided to the defense during his trial.
Jolivet was released on bail in December after serving 33 years in prison. He's been slowly reintegrating into society. Only now, under the new order, he will get to benefit from the presumption of innocence.
I will go fishing, I will take care of myself. I have a follow-up with a psychiatrist there, and let's hope everything is gonna be fine.
The Crown Prosecutor's Office will now review the evidence to decide whether to proceed with a trial, stay the proceedings, or abandon the case. Elizabeth Zogalis, Global News, Montreal.
Super El Niño ahead, what the climate phenomenon could mean for Canada. As Canada and much of the planet deals with extreme heat and other record-setting weather in recent weeks, there is a warning from some scientists that things could only get worse. Researchers with the United Nations have warned of an impending Super El Niño, which could see ocean surface temperatures rise even further. Nathaniel Dove explains.
Expecting days of storms and flooding, Chile declared a state of emergency.
Crisis climática importante.
It's a climate crisis, the country's president says, adding, we need to warn citizens and mitigate what we can. Europe just recorded its hottest June on record, and in Canada, wildfires in Northern Ontario have burned homes and businesses and spread smoke across the continent. A Super El Niño is likely contributing to the weather in Chile, but one expert says, not in Europe and North America.
What it could really have, especially an impact for Canada, is next season for us, so 2027. What we're currently going through is very much attributable to the current climate change that we're experiencing.
The University of Waterloo's Annabella Bonata says the current Super El Niño is just beginning. The United Nations has warned it will mean more extreme weather.
El Niño will also give an extra boost to global temperatures. We know that during El Niño years, the global temperatures normally reach record levels.
Previous Super El Niños, Bonata says, typically result in warmer winters and less precipitation in most of Canada. That has meant worse wildfires. The last Super El Niño was the same year as the Fort McMurray fire. This year, some First Nations are sharply criticizing the Ontario government for, they claim, not helping them evacuate. With next year likely being even worse, Bonata says the country must prepare now.
I think it's important to have really good evacuation plans in place for when the emergency does occur. We need to save lives first.
She points out some communities only have one road in and out. Controlled burns can reduce the risk of ignition, and home air filters can help with smoke, but the size of the fires are unprecedented, and Bonata says we can't fight our way out anymore. Nathaniel Dove, Global News, Toronto.
A century of supporting veterans. Next, a Canadian institution marks a momentous milestone. The Royal Canadian Legion is marking a century of service. Today at the National War Memorial in Ottawa, Canada's Governor-General laid a wreath and placed a poppy on the tomb of the unknown soldier. This ceremony, one of many across the country, Mike Armstrong has more on the lasting legacy of a beloved institution.
The Legion started as a lifeline for veterans of the First World War. Soldiers returning from the horrors they had seen needed somewhere to be together, an organization to fight for them, and a way to remember those who never came home.
450 men who have spent 5 years abroad.
By the Second World War, it was helping serving soldiers. These were men on leave for Christmas.
Canadian Legion and Red Cross workers give the boys a taste of real Canadian food. And does it taste good?
Today, a full century after it was founded, the Legion's mission remains much the same: remembrance, advocacy, and support. The Legion Veterans Village in Surrey, BC is one example. It has 91 affordable apartments, specialized healthcare and rehabilitation to help those who served, including veterans of Canada's most recent war.
I know of some troops that came home, but they're still in Afghanistan, basically. The subsidized housing and PTSD care of this facility will save their lives.
For this 100th anniversary, the Legion made joining free for the year and opened it up to anyone. Membership has jumped 50% to 300,000 nationally. They're organizing several anniversary events at the General Stewart Legion in Lethbridge, Alberta, but they're also focused on the future.
We've already signed up over 250 new members to the branch this year, on top of the about 900 that we already had. So our membership is growing.
The Legion has more than 1,300 branches across the country. Many are hubs in their communities, all work to remember. The Legion in Armstrong, BC is commemorating this anniversary with a crosswalk painted last month, a reminder that the freedom beneath our feet comes at a cost. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
That is Global National for this Friday. I'm Sarah McDonald. Tonight's Your Canada is Blind Bay, Halifax. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Have a great night.